Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by LeBears Casino. Ronnie Rants alongside Tommy Christan on this Friday morning edition of Sports Shorts Daily. TK joining us over from Tremonti's Meat and Seafood like he does each Wednesday and Friday. I'm at an undisclosed location presented by the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Go to lasportshall.com to find out about all the info on the 2025 Hall of Fame induction weekend in class. And, of course, we're presented by LeBears Casino all the time. The sports book at LeBears is the best place in Baton Rouge to watch sporting events, games, great food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner over at the sports book inside LeBears, the ESPN Bets sports book. All right, today we're talking about LSU men's and women's basketball. We're talking about the NFL playoffs. We've got the college football national championship game on Monday, which I'll be at in Atlanta. The line is kind of staying pat. 8. I got 8.5. Ohio State 8.5 point favorite over Notre Dame. Bob Uecker dies at the age of 90. Especially if you're over the age of 40. You know Bob Uecker because he was probably from late 70s to the mid 90s. He was a megastar in the world of commercials and late night talk show appearances and all that. For about a 20-year run, Bob Uecker was a household name in the United States of America. The Pelicans have shown signs of life. Don't look now. They've won 2 in a row. And Tommy, they are favored by how much against the Jazz tonight?
They're favored by 11.5 points against the Jazz. I never thought this year I would say the Pelicans are favored by double digits. I don't care if it's at home. I don't care who they play in. But in fact, they've won 2 games in a row. That's a winning streak, And we'll see what happens. Zion's expected to play tonight. That's always a question. But he and Murphy have really played well in these 2 wins. So we'll see what happens in New Orleans tonight. But as Mark, our listener, says, the Pelicans are playing well in January. We'll see if they can keep it up tonight.
Well, they built themselves such a big hole to start the season, with all the injuries and whatnot that they had. They were just so awful. And so, hopefully they make it entertaining for folks down the stretch, or at least can get Zion Williamson's trade value up, right, if they play well.
Yeah.
National championship game, on Monday. But before that, we've got the NFL playoffs. Some big games this weekend in the NFL. Tommy, take us through them about the point spreads and whatnot.
Well, you got a doubleheader Saturday, and both games are 2-score lines, if you will. Texans at Chiefs. That's the first game Saturday, 3:30. And the Chiefs are an 8.5 point favorite. The whole Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid story. Can they win 3 Super Bowls in a row? Saturday night, Washington and the Lions in Detroit. Lions a 9.5 point favorite. Over and under is 55.5 in that game. I like the over in that game because Detroit's defense, hit with injuries, been a little suspect, but both teams have a powerful offense. You got LSU's Jaden Daniels for the Commanders. That's Saturday night prime time. Then on Sunday, first game, 2 o'clock, Rams at the Eagles. Eagles a 6.5 point favorite. And then Sunday at 5:30, Ravens a road favorite by a point in Buffalo against the Bills. So 2 divisional round games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Going to be a big NFL weekend because then the conference championships will be set for the following Sunday.
Jaden Daniels, 9.5 point dog. I would buy the 0.5 point and take Jaden Daniels and the Redskins to cover.
I like that thought.
I just don't. I think he's playing at such a high level that teams got some special mojo about him. The idea that Jaden Daniels is necessarily going to get blown out when healthy. I don't at this point right now, the way he's rolling, they're rolling, the confidence they're playing with, I just don't see that. Obviously, it's called gambling, but I feel comfortable with that team getting 10 points against anybody right now in the NFL.
Well, and then you're going to get this whole story. Washington played last week. Detroit did not. They had to buy number 1 seed. So that argument is going to come up. Detroit doesn't do well. It's going to be, they didn't have that game. Washington. So if you're going to place that bet at the ESPN Bet Sportsbook at LeBears, look into all those factors. Obviously, in Detroit, weather's not an issue. They're indoors. So look at, as you do when you play, when everybody places their bets. Most people look at all that kind of stuff, but that'll be a discussion as well.
The other one is the Ravens. That surprised me, right? The Buffalo Bills at home dogs has a great team against the Ravens. I mean, I know they're kind of what and what. That just goes to show you what an unbelievable year Lamar Jackson has had. Obviously, both quarterbacks in this game are MVP candidates. But I think Lamar Jackson is probably going to win the MVP if I had to choose one now. Yeah, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase both are making tremendous cases, but they didn't make the playoffs. They were one game over 500, and I think at the end of the day, the success that the Ravens have had, not only this year, but just the continued success of that program. The fact that year in and year out, Lamar Jackson's in that discussion, their team's in the discussion, I think puts them over the top if I had to pick one. I don't think there's too many great players right now, between Saquon Barkley as well. And there's too many great players that are in the playoffs. I don't think that him not being in the playoffs. I mean, talking about the Burrow and Chase combination, I don't think I think them not being in the playoffs is going to hurt them. And oh, by the way, they both are in the same team. Who do you give it to, right? You almost could say they need to be co-MVPs.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and I think Jackson will win it, and Saquon Barkley is going to be third. And again, Barkley's in the playoffs with his team, and so that's going to play out. But the Bills at home, an underdog. And again, you got to check the weather in that one, okay? Because that could be a factor. It's Buffalo, it's January. But, so it's going to be a very, very positive, publicly watched weekend for the NFL, as it always is in the divisional round.
Have you seen the description, pictures, info, whatever, on the Buffalo Bills, new stadium that they're building?
I saw the aerial shot. It's right next door to the current stadium. I mean, it's kind of not as close as the Smoothie King is to the Dome, but right there. That's all I saw was some aerial shots, and I read that it's going to have like an open air thing, but the fans would be covered if it was actually snowing. Kind of like Jerry's World.
Yeah, it's sort of this thing is absolutely going to be incredible. What they're building in Buffalo is so state of the art. I know we don't think Buffalo and state of the art in the same sense or anything, but and I don't think it's going to be ready next year. I think it's just going to be the 26th season is to be ready, but or this year, I guess. But I mean, just obviously because they're up there, a large portion of the crowd will be covered. 60-70% of the seats will be covered, and then they'll have the hole in the middle. But the amenities and the state of the artness, and a lot of warmers and things like that in the seats. It's absolutely incredible. And as the crow flies right near there. The other game that Patrick Mahomes, I had a conversation yesterday. I went to the grand open of the Oshner Elite facility in Baton Rouge. It's an indoor football facility, outdoor soccer, and they have 200-yard soccer and football pitches and fields in the back that are all turf. They've Oshner Medical Health, Jeremy Burnham, who's the doctor there in charge of their sports medicine. Dr. Andrews, their tight end over in Alabama. He was there. It was an unbelievable ceremony and all that. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire was there, and he's doing some work and stuff. He's training there in the offseason as well. Clyde Edwards-Helaire played the last game or Saints this year, got picked up, and is a free agent basically, and looking to obviously continue his career next year somewhere. And we were talking about Patrick Mahomes. I said to him, man, I got burned years ago betting against Patrick Mahomes. And at some point I made the decision that I'm either not going to bet the game but I'm never betting against Patrick Mahomes. And he laughed and he said, dude, there were times when we got the football back in Kansas City in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, and we, some of our teammates, we just laughed because we knew what was about to happen. We knew this dude was going to go down and win the game for us. He said he is just special. I even talked about the TV show Quarterbacks, which was so popular on Netflix for the 24 season. And I gave him my theory. I said, here's my theory, Clyde. I said, in order to play quarterback in the NFL, you have to be a little bit of a nerd. At your core, you have to be a nerd. You have to be a student of the game. You have to be in those books. You have to know what everybody's doing. You have to be the hardest worker on your team. And you don't have to be a great athlete. You just have to be tough. But you, at the core, have to be a nerd and have to have a tremendous work ethic. And he said, no, I agree with you. He said, you have to be a nerd. The amount of information that they have to know and is so incredible. And he went and told some other stories about Clyde Edwards. About Patrick Mahomes. But it was good to visit with him. I used to talk to him a lot in 17, 18, 19 when he played for LSU, because I would do the post game on CST, Cox Sports Television, and interview him a lot. And so in this case, Tommy, the Chiefs are an 8.5-point favorite at home against the Texans, and I love C.J. Stroud, and I love the Texans, and I do think they have some special mojo, much like Jaden Daniels does. But I'm not betting against the Chiefs in this one. If anything, I think I'm going to lay off this one. I'm going to lay off this one because I really think the world of the Texans, and I think they can go there and, lose by a touchdown. And if you look at what the Chiefs have done this year, they play a lot of teams close. They just are too good in the end. And I think what I'm going to go with this time. If you had to bet, I would take the Texans in the points, but only because I think they're going to lose by a little, not a lot.
And the Texans play great defense. And if DeMeco Ryans and the defensive staff, he's the coach, can come up with a way to contain Mahomes, or, he's going to make plays. He's going to be stuffed. Stuff's going to happen. But don't let it happen too much. Try to get rid of the chunk plays, get rid of the big plays. I don't know. I'm like you. If I bet that game, I would take the Texans in the points, thinking the Chiefs, like they've done all year, will win a close one.
I do like the Eagles to cover against the Rams. Two things I want to get your opinion on. One, Bob Uecker passed away at the age of 90. Okay, Bob Uecker, for those that, he was, for decades, he was the radio voice of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Ronnie, let me say this while you're saying that. He was announcing Brewer games before you were born, okay? I looked it up. Let that sink in.
I was born in 19. So there you go.
54 years he announced Brewer games. So he was doing the game when you were, saying hello world.
That's amazing. I didn't realize it went back that far.
Yeah.
But he was so entertaining. You watch the movie Major League and all these other movies. A lot of their over-the-top announcers, broadcasters are sort of mimicking him. And then he bust on the scene with the Miller Lite commercials in the 70s all the way till the 2000s, really. He was involved in a lot of their campaigns and kind of became a household name. And then he was on all the talk shows and he pitched all kinds of things. And for a while, whenever the Brewers were terrible, he was the star of the franchise. He couldn't name a player, but you could name the announcer. And I interacted with him in 1995 when I played in the Brewers organization. And he would drive a Harley. His real life persona was very different than his on-air. His on-air persona was self-deprecating. He would always talk about what a terrible player he was. I must be in the front row. It was a line that people used for 10 years. Meaning the Bob Uecker seats. He would think always. He's sitting in the worst seats in the house. They'd give Bob Uecker the worst seats in the house, last row of the stadium. And he just couldn't believe it. And he always said, well, I must be in the front row. And then, of course, he'd look at his tickets and they were always the worst seats. And they joked about it. It was in the commercials. But in real life, Tommy, he was a Harley driving. He cursed a lot. He was always telling stories with curse words and off the cuff. He was so, he was totally a different persona than his aw shucks, kind of funny, make fun of himself in life. But, he will be missed. And if you go back, if you've got time, go on YouTube and Google Bob Uecker Miller Lite commercials. And it is worth the watch. It is so entertaining and fun, and it's hard. And it's amazing how good those commercials were for 10 years. Miller Lite commercials were awesome until Budweiser started getting with it with all those Super Bowl ads.
Well, Bob Uecker, a couple of things, Ron. He played 6 years in the bigs, okay, and he got
Right.
a World Series ring with the Cardinals, and he hit 14 career homers. So he was that guy that he was a major league player, but then he took it and spun it into another thing. And there's a million stories. Here's my two favorites, Ronnie. When they asked him how did he know he had been cut from the St. Louis Cardinals and he was out of baseball, he said he showed up in the clubhouse and somebody said, "Excuse me, sir, we don't allow visitors in here." And that's how he realized. And the other one was he was drafted by the Milwaukee Braves, which his hometown was Milwaukee, and they came to sit down with his dad and they talked to him, which I'm talking about a contract, and they looked at Mr. Uecker, Bob's dad, and said, "Okay, look, this is what we think. We're thinking $5,000 to sign this contract." And the dad said, "I don't know if I can afford that." Meaning, like he thought he had to pay to let Bob play. And again, Johnny Carson show, Ronnie, you mentioned it. It was noted that Johnny Carson said Uecker was one of his favorite guests, and Bob Uecker was on the Tonight Show 77 times.
Wow.
77 times he was on the Tonight Show. And look, I don't need to bore you with any more stories. Go to YouTube, all over X, all the quotes, the comments, the little 2-minute pieces with Carson. They're all there. And I've watched a lot of them because he's a legend, and he loved what he did. He loved announcing Brewers baseball, and he had a passion for the game that started, I guess, when he was a kid, and he's an icon. He's a genius. The definition of a genius is that which cannot be duplicated. There'll never be another Bob Uecker, so therefore he was a genius. And Ronnie, just think if social media was what it is today, if it had been like that in the 70s when he started the Miller Lite thing
Right.
and the spray paint. He had the Krylon spray paint. He and Johnny Bench did commercials. He'd been a gazillionaire back then, But Bob Uecker, a true legend, a baseball icon, and anybody, like you said, over the age of 40, you knew exactly who Bob Uecker was, whether it was from the Major League movie, just a bit outside. That line gets used by every announcer in America. Minor league baseball game in Iowa, the announcer will go, "Oh, just a bit outside." He'll be flattery to Bob Uecker. So somebody who'll be missed, but what a great run.
You got to be a pretty good player to stick around for 6 years in the big leagues. That was the part I always laughed at was that he made fun of himself for being such a bad player. I played 6 years in the major leagues. And the other one, to be on Johnny Carson 77 times. Think about how big it was in the 70s and 80s. Like, before the tremendous boom of cable and satellite and the streaming and everything else. ABC, NBC, CBS, and of course dominated everything. And of course the Carson show the Tonight Show was the biggest late night show of all. And so if you went on it 3 or 4 times, people knew who you were. You were a national star. To go on it 77 times speaks to his fame from the late 70s to the mid 90s. His fame was tremendous, and like you said, all the national ads and things that he was on.
One night, Johnny Carson, as you said, "Bob, in your career, you were 0 for 16 as a pinch hitter. Why was that?" Bob said, "Well, I didn't want to get a hit because they thought I might be able to do it again." He was a legend.
You watched the TGL golf this past earlier this week, and it's going to be on again Tuesday night. The TGL golf. The Indoor Golf League. This was the second week of it. What was your just takeaway?
I don't know if it'll catch on. Certainly, they're going to get viewership because it'll be new, it'll be fresh, the honeymoon period, whatever. But it's played in a building that's built just for this, the Tomorrow Golf League. There's a lot of investors. The Mets owners involved. Serena Williams is involved. Obviously, Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy. It's a place that seats 1,200 people. It's got some suites. They spent $100 million on this building. 60 on the building, 40 on the golf simulator, if you will. And the players are mic'd up. It was 3-man teams. Tiger Woods' team got crushed the other night. They were down like 9-1 in their point scoring system. There's a lot of goofiness, like they can drop the hammer. People are going to have to learn about it. But I think like if me and you and the guys, we went into this simulator, I'm going to call it, because you hit off of real grass, you hit out of real sand. And then there's a big screen, the ball goes into that, and then it's all like playing Golden Tee. You can see the ball flying, land, bounce, water, whatever. But then they have a green in there that's huge, and they can change the undulations on it. Again, they spent $40 million on the guts of this thing, $60 million on the building. And a good friend of mine, John Eng, who started the Hooker Kid on Golf program in West Palm Beach, Florida, he was there. And he said, and he's a golf nut like we are. And he said, he said it's better in person probably than TV, which most sports are better in person than on TV because you see everything more than if you're watching TV. So it's got unlimited money. It's got a contract. Huh?
That's a problem, Tommy, if it's better in person than on TV because they only have 1,200 seats.
Right. So, but they're not going to run out of money between Tiger and Rory, and they got the ESPN contract. They're not going to run out of money. So I think it may take some time, but I watched like an hour of it. So it's not like I put it on for 10 minutes and went, And then it was the players, they can yell at each other when they're putting. Like Tiger Woods said before I watched it, he said, it's very different, but it is golf. So we're going to have to let some people, we need more time. And watch it next Tuesday. We'll talk about it. But it's very, very different, but it is golf. And kind of on the lighter side, like Tiger Woods was really bad the other day. And his son, Charlie, of course, kept putting the camera on him. And he was laughing at his dad hitting a bad shot and all that stuff.
Look, as much of a sports nut as you are and as much of a golf fan as you are, if you spend an hour watching it and at best your takeaway is maybe it'll maybe it'll catch on. That it's not going to catch on. Like this has to be you turned it in and you liked it. You were into it. You thought, man, people are going to love this. And another thing too, it can't be that difficult. It's not about the nuances of the rules with drop the hammer challenges, whatever. It's got to be you tune it on, you get it, you like it. It's pretty awesome. So you're saying you much prefer to watch them play a regular course than play this?
Absolutely. At this point, and we'll see. Time will tell. Let it play out. Your famous words, but I don't know that I think the hardcore, like me, the hardcore, or you, the nut golfer, next Tuesday, if you're available, you're going to flip it on. But that passionate fan that maybe only watches the Masters and the Open and the PGA, I don't think they're going to get into this. I really don't. Even though you got marquee names, it's too early to pass judgment, but we'll see.
Well, they'll be passing judgment on pretty quickly with those ratings. I mean, they better get with it, or it's going to be $100 million. Listen, the thing about it is they spent $100 million to build it. The problem is that with all this technology, it's going to break. Things are going to glitch. How much does it cost to fix the moving green and undulates and all that? How much does it fix? Oh, the screen broke or the thing, because they're going to sell a ton of. They're going to be able to. I mean, tons of golfers would pay $1,000 a round, $1,500 a round. So they're going to have the private golfers. They're going to have the corporate events come down there. The 500 insurance agents. We're going to have their conference in West Palm, and they're going to. But is that going to pay the bills? Because it's not just recouping the 100. It's the staffing, it's the fixing of things and all that. So can they ever get on top? Because if this doesn't work, if the ratings and all that don't work, and after a couple of years they wave the white flag, they're going to have to make their money on Joe Schmoes and corporations and all that. We'll see. But I'm going to give it a go this Tuesday night. I'm going to give it to Tommy Chrysan. I'll watch it in an hour, and then we'll talk about it on Wednesday morning, and see how it all goes. All right, TK, tell us about Tremonti's.
Everything you need for the weekend, the meat, the seafood, the bourbon, the wine, they've got it all here. Still doing the deer process, and people just picked some up today. They get the ribeye rolls, the shrimp rolls. You need to focus on that here. Ribeye rolls, shrimp rolls, through the roof, outstanding. Great price on them, all that good stuff. Tremonti's Meat and Seafood, Jefferson Highway, Baton Rouge. Come on in, get some lunch, browse around a little bit. Not that big a place. You browse around pretty quickly. You'll be amazed at all the things they have at Tremonti's Meat and Seafood here in Baton Rouge on Jefferson Highway.
Hey, I'll tell you about the first pitch banquet tomorrow morning, Saturday, 10 to noon. It was the LSU football first pitch banquet, the largest crowd they've ever had. I mean, it was busting at the seams, over 1,000 people at the event. We'll talk about that tomorrow morning. ESPN Radio, Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, 10 to noon. And you can also download the 104.5 ESPN app and watch anywhere, listen anywhere. For Tommy Christ and I'm Ronnie Rance. Thanks to LaBear's Casino, and have a great one, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on Sports Shorts Radio.